15 years in the NFL as one of the premier deep threats and a 3-time Pro Bowler. LA's DeSean Jackson stops by in studio. By the way, for people that may not realize this, you have 26 career touchdowns of 60-plus yards, most in league history. 5 touchdowns of 80 or more, tied for the most in league history. 34 touchdowns of 50-plus yards. Only Jerry Rice has more. So to the very end, health was the issue, not the speed. You still got behind guys.
Right.
So I want to start with this. Let's take Kansas City. They have a young speedster like you. You were at Cal, Long Beach Poly, Cal, NFL. Immediately you popped. Xavier Worthy is his name. Now, when you came into the league, people said, well, he's a little light. That's the knock on Worthy. Your thought, if you had to give a young receiver who's under 180 pounds advice, do you know Xavier Worthy? What would you give him advice?
Yeah, I personally know Xavier Worthy. It's crazy because, in college, he reached out to me a few times. We went back and forth on Instagram. And, just looking at his skill, I actually did some scouting for the Eagles this offseason. Me and Howie got a little relationship.
Sure.
And, he gave me like 6-7 receivers, and I had to do some scouting on him. So Xavier Worthy, throughout all the receivers I did scouting on, I was like, this guy, Xavier Worthy, he's going to be a potentially Pro Bowl receiver in this league. And personally, myself, I would just say, don't make it bigger than what it is. It's football. At the end of the day, the reason why I came in early on as a rookie and had success is because I came in and I didn't make the game bigger than it was. I was very confident in myself regardless of the stature, the size. I was only like 169. I was 5'10", 169.
You were his size.
Exactly. Guys was like, oh, he's not going to do this. He's not going to do this. But I think guys of his stature, our stature, we've been hearing that our whole life. So for me, I just always used that to advantage. People thought I was too small, I wasn't going to do this. So the naysayers, I just used it to advantage. I say, y'all think I'm not going to do this. I'm going to come to the NFL and prove to you I can do this. So me, just make the game not big. It's football. At the end of the day, every step of the way, it gets faster. Guys get bigger. But, if you got heart and you don't let people hit you, don't let people hit you, Xavier. Hey, they can't hit what they can't catch. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, just stay fast, man. And Coach Reid, if anything else, I know he's going to put him in a great position to win.
Yeah. So, for sure, we love Andy. Now, you played with Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
You played with, Jalen Hurts. You've also played with older veteran quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
So we have 2 quarterbacks in the league. I think they're both going to hit. I think Jaden Daniels is underrated and Caleb Williams is properly rated.
Right.
How many games will it take for you to go, that works? Like, do you need to see? I mean, hell, could you watch in practice? Could you see an exhibition game? What will you need to say? Okay, that's official. That's going to work. Jalen Hurts, by the way, did you see him early?
Yeah, preferably. I was going to give you an instance on that. So when I was in 2019, I came back to the Philadelphia Eagles, and we had Carson Wentz was our starter.
Yep.
And I remember specifically me and Howie Roseman sitting back. And Jalen Hurts was the number 2 quarterback. That was the year they drafted him second round. They like, why would you draft? Like, Howie, why would you draft him second round? You just paid Carson Wentz all this money. Why would you pick this guy second round? People didn't understand it, right? So speed up. Carson Wentz gets hurt. Now we're in practice. We're in training camp. And, obviously the second team always go against the one defense.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting back in practice. Me and Howie sitting next to each other. And we like, this guy's going to be special. Howie looked over to me. He was like, D-Jack, you see that? I'm like, hey, you got something in that guy right there. He was making the ones look like they were like practice squad players. And I was like, it was just something about his morale. He went into the huddle. He took, ownership in the huddle. He was calling out the plays. And it was just, he was laid back. It was like the game wasn't too big for him. So I look at guys like that, like Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams.
They got a lot of starts in college.
A lot of starts in college. And honestly, for me, I look at that to see, like, how are you going to make the game look? Is it going to be bigger than you? Is it going to be too much? Is it going to be overwhelming? Or are you going to be complaining? Like, you want to see all that body language. You want to see when you throw an interception. How do you, react to that? So for me, I just think those guys, they just got to show up early. But it's going to take time. You're not going to be able to see, right away that, oh, they might be that guy. But you might see glimpses of it here and there.
Well, you mentioned something I remember seeing with Dak Prescott. You mentioned you saw Jalen Hurts command respect. For me, it's not just the throwing.
Yeah.
When I watch a young quarterback, is he in command?
Exactly.
That to
you
me
got
is
control.
Are you in control of the operation?
Yeah.
If I see nervous feet, if I see a guy that's lost at the line of scrimmage, like I think the Jaden Daniels thing is interesting because I think he's sort of Lamar Jackson light. I don't think he's as fast. I think he's better in the pocket as a rookie.
Right.
I think I watched them at Arizona State. You did. I watched them at LSU. I think Caleb Williams stole all the glare from everybody.
For sure.
I think Jaden Daniels. I think he's a
But that adds added pressure too, as far as Caleb Williams. Like I think he was at SC. You're in Hollywood. You got all the lights, camera, action on you. But one thing I will say about Jaden Daniels, and to your remarkings on him, I think he's awesome. I think guys like that fall under the radar. You're not the talked about guy, but you're kind of somewhat being talked about. So it's easy selling for him because he doesn't have the added pressure. Caleb Williams. He has the added pressure. He's going to a team where they added Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. You got the rookie from to Washington. You know what I'm saying? So I think like it sets up for success. But if he doesn't have the success, it's like, oh my God, like now what's next? We just let go of Fields. So I think it's a little harder for him to kind of like be set up for success. But Jaden Daniels on the other side, he's kind of calm sailing under it, and he's like, it sets up for great success for him as well too.
Who, of all the corners you faced in your career, so you were a speed guy, you were often in motion, which you often do with smaller receivers to get them free. Were there one or two corners in the NFL that you just knew Sunday was going to be a tough day?
Yeah, we actually every time we played, and this is early on in my career, we used to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Aqib Talib. He was a very physical wide receiver.
A
very physical cornerback. He pressed at the line of scrimmage. He was like 6'3". His arms was like from here to there. And it was like he always used to come to the line of scrimmage. But it was very challenging for me. So I thought early in my career, he was like the only guy to really like jam me. I don't get jammed, you know what I'm saying? But he got me one time and I was pissed off. I'm like, you know what, that'll never happen again. But guys like him, I used to face Darrell Revis. He used to give me some good times. I know that he's physical. He's another guy that can get physical. He's physical, but like one thing about Darrell, he just sensed route recognition. He was able to read routes. He was able to read the quarterback. And I think another one was like Richard Sherman. He was a longer stature guy. He played in that Legion Maboon defense. Like they were crazy in their era. But I used to, honestly, what I would say, guys never really wanted to guard me one-on-one. I'm not saying they wouldn't. But throughout the course of a game, like you got to follow me everywhere. And I'm fast. So like who wants to guard DeSean Jackson 100% of the time throughout the game? Right. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I think, I give a lot of guys respect and credit, but throughout the course of a game, there was no one that really just followed me around the whole game. Like they had safety help, because if they didn't, bombs over Baghdad.
Right.
It's bomb, it's deep.
So you played with Michael Vick in Philly, the legendary Monday Night Catch.
That's my dog. I know he's been on your show a few times, man.
Michael, I love Michael.
That's my boy, man.
So Michael was such... when I was younger, you'd see an occasional Michael Vick in high school.
Right.
Maybe in college.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of Michael Vicks in the NFL.
No, it wasn't.
What was it like to play with Michael?
Man, honestly, it was a dream come true for me. I got a crazy story. So it was me, I think Shady McCoy and Jeremy Macklin. We was actually in the locker room, and we got a crazy call from Coach Reed. So he's like, hey, young fella, how you feeling, man? I'm like, I'm good, Coach. I'm like, what's going on? You usually don't call me. It's like, what would you do if I told you we could get Michael Vick? I'm like, what? Like, you said Michael Vick because, so she's fresh out of jail from a situation. So I'm not thinking that I'm getting this call from Andy Reid and he's telling me about Michael Vick, right? And this is when, obviously, we had Donovan McNabb there. So I'm like, oh, man. So he's like, what would you feel? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I grew up loving Michael Vick. Like, he was, like, one of my first players that I fell in love with. Like, Michael Vick and Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant is, like, three people that I admire my game after, right? So, it was a dream come true. It was no other person that I learned more in my career because, how I grew up and how I was raised, I always was hanging around my friends, always had, like, extracurriculum homies hanging around. So that's, just growing up how I grew up, you got the friends. He was like, hey, D, I'm going to tell you this. One thing go wrong, none of them dudes going to be here for you. He said, trust me. I had a situation where one of my boys I grew up with had a little situation and they told on him and something crazy happened and how he got into the situation. He was like, man, if it ever gets bad, these dudes not going to be here for you. So I just learned a lot from him because he said, as a professional, you got to go to work. You can't bring these dudes with you. And I was the guy that tried to bring everybody with me, let them experience games and traveling. But sometimes, that image is not what you want to put out there. So for me, I learned a lot from Michael Vick as a big brother.
Andy Reid as a coach, he's probably the best. Well, he's the best coach in the sport now. Mm-hmm. He's arguably the best ever.
Right.
What was different about Andy Reid from other great coaches? Because I'm looking at the coaches you had. You had McVay, John, McDermott, Chip Kelly. You had good coaches, dude.
Sure.
John Gruden.
Yeah.
What's different about Andy Reid?
I think Andy Reid, man, first off, like you said, I've been coached from some great guys. I think Andy Reid, yet alone, is the best that's been coached me. I mean, it's a father figure. It was like almost having a dad 2.0 to be able to coach and to be able to, like, just command. He command respect. He gave you a hardship, but at the same time, he loved you.
So he'd bang on you.
He would get on me, boy. So, I mean, when I tell you I used to do things, he used to pull them glasses down to give me that look. You ain't even got to say nothing. You knew he was about business. You know what I'm saying? For me, he was from L.A. He was a guy that grew up and raised out here. So he knew what it was like. He knew the temptation. He knew how I tried to, help and change the whole area that I was raised in. So he used to just always tell me, like, when you come to work, ball got to be the focus. You can't be worrying about what's going on back home. This person needs help or he's asking for money. Like, all that stuff you got to leave to the side. So for me, losing my dad in 2009, I lost my dad early. I was 21 years old, going into my second year.
Yeah.
And he knew what I endured. And obviously my dad meant everything to me. So me losing my dad and Andy Reid stepping up to the plate and, like, almost being like a dad in my life was, like, huge to me. And I will always love him. I actually just talked to him yesterday, and he sent me a text message talking about, I had glimpses. He said, I had flashbacks today. I said, Coach, what you mean? And I look at the video, and he sends me the video of Mahomes turning out and throwing the ball all the way back and Xavier Worthy catching the ball. I said, hey, Coach, it's only one DeSean Jackson. He said, you're right. But you see that? I said, I seen that throw from that quarterback. I said that. He said, you would have loved Mahomes. I'm like, man, if I'd have been able to play with Mahomes, oh, my gosh.
You know what I remember? Now, I follow recruiting, so I knew who you were. Mm-hmm. And you were at Long Beach Poly, which was sort of the Roadrunners,
right,
which was kind of like the track team of the West Coast football.
Exactly.
Tell me if you remember this. Cal hosting Tennessee, Brent Musburger, ABC punt return.
For sure, 100%. I mean, I remember leading up all week because you got to remember this. That was my sophomore year.
Yep.
So my freshman year, we went to Tennessee and got our butts handed to. And I actually scored in that game. I scored. I did okay. But I was a freshman playing in Tennessee. That game, 110,000,
crazy,
white and orange towels going. I'm looking at the stand. I'm like, wow, this is big-time football, right? So year 2, they come to Cal. All week in practice, this punter's talking about, I'm punting the ball. He didn't do nothing last year. I'm punting the ball. So I'm reading all these messages or whatever the case may be, and all these articles. And so the first come up in the game, they went 3 and out. All stuff. Here comes the Wizard of return. The Wizard of Oz returns, right? So I go out there. He booted. He kicks him. I'm like, oh my gosh. So he kicks it. And what's crazy is I felt the guy coming down, so it was the gunner. He got like a free release, and my guy didn't block him, right? So I'm looking. As you see, I'm looking. I catch it, and I jump back, so I make a miss.
The move.
I move, right? So once I moved there, I looked to the right. It was another guy coming down. I'm like, oh, man, how am I going to do this? So I, like, jumped forward and jumped back on him. And from there, man, it was all history.
Brent Musburger went nuts. We should try to find that. I remember watching that, and you did sort of a Michael Jackson moonwalk. Jump back. And Musburger had never seen it.
Right.
And Brent went nuts.
Yeah, he lost his mind, man.
Now, Berkeley's I don't look at you and go, Tony Gonzalez went to Berkeley.
Right.
And I'm like, Tony, how did you, hippies, Berkeley?
Living in trees. They was living in trees because around this time they was trying to redo the stadium.
Yeah.
And they didn't want.
Did you like it?
I loved it. I mean, for me, growing up in Los Angeles, California, and, I gave a soft commit to USC. But Pete Carroll, he gave Patrick Turner my number. I don't know if you know this story.
No.
But Patrick Turner was a Tennessee guy, right? And he was recruiting him. And at the time, SC and Poly, we had like a merge. Like everybody from Poly was going to SC. So Pete Carroll just thought he had me in the head. Like, so he's like, all right, we ain't got to do no extra recruiting for D-Jack, right? So going throughout the process, I'm telling him, like, Pete, I'm like, you got to give me that number 1. I need that number 1. It's D-Jack. It's number 1. I'm staying home. I'm LA. And he ended up giving number 1 to Patrick Turner. And before I committed, I'm like, well, I committed, but before I officially committed, I was like, you sure? Because Jeff Tevert, he recruited me heavy. I said, Cal just beat y'all. Because, that was the year Aaron Rodgers beat them here in the Coliseum. And I said, Cal just beat y'all. I said, you sure? I was like, I can't get number 1. He's like, yeah, we got to give it to this guy. He's coming from out of town. I'm like, all right, made the move to go to Cal. But for me, growing up in LA is different. You know, Cal just was open arms, and I was able to really go and focus. I feel like if I'd have went to SC, I would have had too many distractions staying here at home.
Yeah. CeeDee Lamb has a lot of leverage. So
ton of leverage.
Now, Brandon Ayuk is upset, but they have so many weapons.
Right.
The team's got a little bit of leverage.
Yep.
No CeeDee Lamb, no receiving core.
No Cowboys.
Have you ever held out?
I have in 2012.
Is it hard? I mean, what's the conflict between you're not with your dudes, but you want to get paid? Is it hard?
I mean, honestly, for me, going back to 2012, I just was talking about this situation. I think I fell into a situation where Drew Rosenhaus was my agent around that time, man. Yeah. Drew Rosenhaus and the Eagles organization, they weren't really gelling well together around this time because T.O., they had all this situation with T.O. and the Eagles and Howie Roseman and all that. Joe Banner back then.
They were a little shy.
So they was kind of already had, they was already at odds. So I don't even think it was me. It just kind of fell into the play that Drew Rosenhaus was my agent. He was trying to strong arm the Eagles, and they was like, we're not going for it. But Drew Rosenhaus was like, we're not going to camp. And me, I'm like, I love ball. Like, all I know is ball. I'm like, I'm not going to camp. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to camp. And throughout the process, I think it was like a 5 or 6 day holdout. I was getting fined like $50,000 every day. And you know me, I'm like, hold on. I'm trying to get that new money. I ain't trying to go into camp at that negative base, right? So it ended up working out. But what I do suggest, man, to these guys, I mean, a lot of times you never know how the holdouts go. Sometimes they work into your benefit. Sometimes they don't work into your benefit. So, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, I think he's definitely deserving of a new contract.
Oh, no question.
You know, the past 2 years alone, he led the league.
He is their offense.
You know what I'm saying? He led the league in receptions over the past 2 years. You know, in touchdowns, he was third. In receiving yards, he was third. So, I mean, and the guys that's been getting paid, there's no doubt in my mind he shouldn't be at least right up under, Justin Jefferson.
Finally, briefly with Sean McVay. So I love McVay.
It's my guy.
But when McVay got the job, he was 30. I got interns that are almost that old. So when you were with McVay, his energy.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it like to have a coach that's younger than some of the players?
Exactly. So I got an interesting story. So what was that, 2017? I think it was the year of the 2016, 2017 offseason. I got a call, from my agent at the time was Joe Siegel. Yeah. And Joe Siegel had a relationship with the owners for the Rams. And they actually called and talked to Joe and was like, man, we want to talk to D-Jack. We want to know how McVay was when he was in Washington, because I was in Washington with him for 3 years. Yeah. It was like, how is McVay as a coach? How is he as a leader?
Oh, so they called you to see if he could be the coach.
They called. I was like one of 3 players they called. So they called me, and if you ever talk to McVay, you can ask him. I'm not lying. They called me. They called Trent Williams. And I want to say,
that's your buddy.
That's my dog. And then I want to say they called Pierre Garçon at the time too, right? So they just was curious on how is he? Because one thing that a lot of people don't know, so Jay Gruden was our coach in Washington.
Yeah.
Jay Gruden never got up in front of offense and did any plays installed. Sean McVay handled everything. And for me, I was like, Sean McVay is actually a very personable guy because he goes up and he takes control. He takes ownership. And at this time, Sean McVay was like 20, 28, 27. I mean, he was young.
And he would control the room.
He would control the room. Like, he had that respect. And guys knew, you got certain guys that come up and it's like, oh, I'm in meetings. I got to hear another dude talk. But, how engaged McVay was. And not only engaged, he knew his stuff. X's and O's, the ins and outs of the plays. It was just you would have thought everything was his philosophy, right? So I was like, man, he's a great coach. He's young, but he knows how to take ownership. He could take control of the room. And I think I actually helped him get that job in L.A.
I heard he interviewed with the Rams, and they came to the conclusion, we can't let him get on a plane.
When I tell you he's he's an expert, and I don't like to use this word geek, but when it comes down to plays and just how he sets up, Cooper Kupp obviously is a heck of a receiver. He had 2-3 crazy years. But I mean, just to see, guys were asking me because I played with Cooper Kupp. They was like, man, how is Cooper Kupp getting open this wide open? I'm like, for one, he can run routes. For 2, he's very smart. And for 3, Sean McVay, the way he play calls and the way he schemes for that, they're never wrong. And then not only that, you got Matthew Stafford. He's a creature out the world as well, too. I think he doesn't get the much credit he deserves, man. He's a baller.
By the way, Puka Nacua.
Out of nowhere. And I went to training camp last year, and McVay and Yarbs, the wide receiver coach, Yarber, they were sitting there. They was like, D-Jack, look what I got. Because I was out there, I was going to coach, but I was like, man, when I seen them hours and stand up, my knees started hurting. I said, hey, man, I can't coach. I said, man, I can't do this. So I went out there for a few days, but I swear, every day they kept telling me, look at that guy, Puka. Look at that guy, Puka. So I'm seeing him, and I'm like, yeah, I see a little something.
But he's not that fast.
I didn't expect to see what I just seen this past year.
No, I watched him at BYU in Washington, and I'm like, I don't think he can separate.
Man,
but
you know what? Very physical.
You know what it is? A, he's physical. B, the whole league plays zone.
Exactly.
So he's a smart kid who understands how to. And another thing is, he always breaks the first tackle.
No, definitely.
Cooper's like that.
Cooper's like that as well too. So I mean that team, man, and then with Matthew Stafford, and then my young boy over there, Tutu Atwell, I think he'll have a great year this year too. But it's crazy, man, just sitting back and seeing how the league is advanced, man. It's an offensive league now. You got, what McDaniel's doing over there with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, man. I mean, I'm here to love it. Like, you get a lot of older guys that retire and they kind of hate on the young guys. I mean, I'm here for it. The guys, the money they're making and how the league's turned into an offensive game, man, I'm here for it. I love it, man. I think I can still play too, Colin. I don't know. What you think?
I think the Rams.
Can I be a wide receiver number 2 and What we just saying? Dallas? You think I can be right?
No, Dallas?
I could be wide receiver number 2, right? I don't know. I think Jerry Jones need to give me a call, man. I'm still in shape, man. I'm only like 185.
You still work out?
I still work out. This is the most out of ever. All these years I tried to gain weight. I could never gain weight. Now I done took 2 years off. I got a little belly over here.
Hey, man, what a pleasure to see you again. You're always welcome on our show. Unbelievable career.
Thank you, man.
And I met DeSean years ago at an event, and you're just light the room up,
yeah,
bro.
You was partying. You was having a good time, and I had to come over there and give you some cheers, man.
I try to avoid a bad time.
Hey, man, congrats to all the success you're doing, too, man. You're killing it. You're doing your thing on this network, man, this platform. Appreciate you. Yes, sir.
All right, back in a second. It's The Herd. Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from The Herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.